Again, guess who doesn't exist hundreds of billions of years ago, or eons of time ago? The intelligent, conscious, living agency of evolutionists. So hundreds of billions of years ago, Mother Evo, I guess, kicks everything off, kicks all of reality off, without intelligent, conscious, living agency. Now this literally means that, of course, it didn't even need the intelligent, conscious, living agency of these human beings called evolutionists, right? It doesn't need them at all, right? Now, even if they wanted to fast forward that timeline, right, for the arrival of intelligent, conscious, living agents, right? So not hundreds of billions of years ago, but billions of years ago. So not billions, but hundreds of millions. Not hundreds of millions, but millions. Not millions, but hundreds of thousands. Whatever it is, right? Throughout the history of that mythical timeline, Mother Evolution has not handed these evolutionists any of the reality that they have had to borrow and take in order to develop their scientific model, right? So again, nothing is being given to them by evolution. So if you guys are understanding this so far, right, we can make the claim that basically in the evolution camp, evolution has been replaced by evolutionists, right? Evolution is not doing anything. The evolutionists are doing everything, remember, to make evolution a must. They explicitly claim this themselves, right? And here's further evidence of this. Let's just think about this, right? You're never going to hear one of the atheists from the evolution camp say something like, well, we don't lie, cheat, falsify evidence, or anything like that, because Mother Evo reminds us that this would be sinful, and that she would execute just, accurate judgment, accountability, etc., on our behalf. Right? And we, of course, would welcome this, because we know that getting away with all our sins and our wrongs is evil, and because Mother Evolution has bestowed upon us the important lesson and truth of accountability and righteous judgment, etc. Right? The reason why you'll never hear anything as absurd as that coming from the mouths of evolutionists is because there's nothing there to do anything to them, right? And this is a takeaway. This is important to understand. Since evolution is not there to do anything to these evolutionists, that literally means that they are the only ones left, right, to make up all of this quote-unquote science for evolution and quote-unquote science of evolution, right? They are literally making the science up as they go along. For what? Well, for the ultimate success of their experiments, aka the claims of we are observing evolution happen before our eyes, in our labs, etc., right? Well, of course you are, right? That would be the claim. Why? Because again, they have all existing reality, right? They have blobs of bacterium, they have ribose, they have proteins, they have enzymes, they have amino acids. They have all this reality, right? They are borrowing and selling and trading 100% chemical yields with junk disposed of, right? Everything they need, including monitoring environmental conditions, right? Because the building blocks of the building blocks of the building blocks of the building blocks of just one cell are immediately destroyed in the wrong environmental conditions. So just picture these evolutionists, right, sending their teams, right, rushing to remove beakers or containers of blobs of bacterium from one particular location to another, right, so that the environmental conditions do not destroy, right, whatever evidence they are using. So again, if you understand this, they are the ones that are, of course, left to create or invent all of this science as they go along, right? That's why they will make claims like we are observing this happen before our eyes, or we observed Darwinian synthesis or Darwinian evolution happening after this experiment, right? But of course, what they won't tell you is that they are the ones that are pre-engineering, right? They are preparing all of this existing reality to, of course, make their experiments work. So again, evolution is doing nothing here. It doesn't exist. Evolutionists are the ones doing everything. Now, let me return to what this discussion started off as, right? So the claim leveled against creation scientists that creation science is pseudoscience, it's not real science, etc., etc. So here's why this is completely absurd. There is no such thing as a spiritual-based scientific model / scientific operations. Nothing of the kind in the creation institutions or any of the scientific institutions. It's never existed, right? It is just a claim, as I told you, a lie made up by the evolutionists. But now, with everything I have shared thus far, we have an understanding as to why. See, now that the claim has been made and leveled against creation scientists, all the attention from, I'll call them the village atheists, right? The fellow atheist community, right, now goes over and jumps on the creation team, accusing them, and mocking them about not being able to execute real science and conduct real science, etc., etc., right? So now that all the attention, right, by these village atheists is on the creation team, the attention about the actual faith, belief systems, and worldviews going on in the evolution camp, there's no attention there, right? So they can actually get away with all of this faith and all of these faith-based operations, right? Let me go back to a point that I just made here, right? As I said, they are the only ones left to conduct all this science of and science for evolution. Think about what that means, right? It means that if they actually encounter any evidence that goes against their theory, right, of naturalism or naturalistic / materialistic properties and parts and components of things, right? Basically, chemistry and physics. If anything goes against this, think about it. That's never going to make it to the final published literature, right? If the evidence goes against naturalism and naturalistic theories and hypotheses, right, then what they do is insert a rescue device, right? It's a rescue device amongst themselves or in their labs. In the final published literature, of course, it makes it off as a new scientific theory. Now, if you read their papers, right, regarding things like information and how does new information get passed on to future generations by natural selection, etc., etc., you'll actually read that they have multiple ways that this happens, right? What this is actually evidence for are these rescue devices, right? Because again, if the evidence is going against naturalism, right, their very next try, right, their very next experiment and everything they are going to have to prepare, right, so pre-prep work, right, everything that they're going to have to pre-engineer, etc., etc., right, they're obviously then going to want that to have backup, right, aka multiple rescue devices, but in their final published literature it makes it off as new scientific theories, and of course the claims that all the